Purple light in the canyon. That's where I.
You know, it's funny because, you know, I'm not anti-podcast at all, but
Sure.
I just see people doing them that I'm like, do you really look in the mirror and think anybody gives a shit about what you think? You know what I mean?
Well, that's what's great about
And so-
mine is I get interesting people.
Well, the thing is, you know, I think that there's some very cool, interesting stories that you get to know that you would have never known before, but they're just some people out there doing them. I'm like, of what value? You know, like, and so I had some requests, and there was one guy that I didn't particularly care for him, and then he asked me if I'd do it, and I said, well, how much does it pay? The minute you
Gets a little
never
weird.
called back.
Yeah.
How much does it
Well,
pay?
shit, you charged us like $30,000-$40,000, you know?
Yeah. It's like Cody Johnson. He played when I got married a few years ago. He came and played one song and said, "Yeah, I'll tell everybody I paid you $50,000
Yeah.
in silver dollars."
You know what's scary about that is for Cody Johnson to play one song, it probably was about $50,000-$60,000.
It might have been this is before everybody knew he was Cody Johnson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I got married
Well, no, you got married in like 21 or something, didn't you?
yeah, in 21, yeah.
What if I knew like the exact date? That'd be weird.
Well, maybe you could give me a hint, so I'd do
Yeah.
my memory. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
No, yeah, but it was he played one song, so
How long you known him?
oh, probably back before he became Cody Johnson, kind of. He I started going to a charity event that Josh Beckett, the baseball player, and Rusty Baker did. We got to be really, really good friends with them. And Beckett was huge, you know, big music fan. So anybody he liked, he would get to come to these events. And so I met him at one of those. But like I said, this is before he was Cody Johnson. So
Yeah, so what that'd be like late. It'd be 2000. I mean, he'd been doing it for a long time.
Yeah,
15,
it would've
16,
been-
17?
yeah, somewhere
Yeah.
around that area. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even a little bit before that. Maybe.
did you always were you always super into music?
You know, I've always loved music. It's funny because growing up, you know, I grew up in West Texas, you know, El Paso, mostly New Mexico, but I always liked music. You know, when I was younger, I was listening to more rock and roll than I ever did. No disrespect, you know, everybody talking about George Jones, all that shit. I wouldn't have. I'm a fan of anybody that does well in good music, but he wouldn't been my first choice, you know. But I got to be good friends with Charlie Robinson, and so my oldest son Lane, when he was probably he's probably 10 or something like that, and we went down and stayed a couple days with Charlie, and Charlie was showing him how to play the guitar a little bit. So one year for Christmas, I called Charlie. I said, "Hey, I want to buy a guitar for Lane for Christmas." And I said, I know nothing about it. Buy me one, or tell me what to buy, and so I'll take care of it. Days go by, like 2 days before Christmas, I call him up and say horrible things to him. I said, "Listen, you son of a bitch, this is my son. This is Christmas." "Yeah, don't worry, I'll take care of him." Christmas Eve, like 5:00, UPS driver comes driving up, or no, it was actually FedEx. Great big box, open it. Got this guitar case that looked like it'd been ran over, and open up this old guitar in there, and had a handful of signatures on it, and I called and told him, yeah, I got it. What are you? No, he said, that's what I'm giving Lane for Christmas. He said, have him call in the morning, and I'll tell him about it. So we call him the next morning, and he says, yeah, Lane, that's my guitar. I called it Old Number One. It's what I wrote my first album on. Barlight, My Hometown, Sunset Boulevard. And that's what so every time I want to cuss and say bad things to Charlie and about Charlie, because Charlie was hard to like sometimes. Yeah, I think he did have a soft side to him at times. So,
Yeah.
and so whenever Lane started playing, he's my oldest son, my firstborn, and so, whatever he wanted to do, I tried to support, and he started roping when he was real young, and we roped every day, and then started playing the guitar and really liked that, and I got to know most everybody in and around Texas country, because he would want to go watch, and I'm real good friends. One of my best friends in the world is Robert Gallagher, so
Oh, I didn't know
we
that.
go down to see anybody and everybody at Billy Bob's, and plus I'm a music fan, so
Yeah.
and
How old's Lane now?
he's 34, and he has
So Charlie did that when he was like
Paddleball.
10.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Did he? So he knows now how cool that was.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, he the older he got, the more he realized, that this, I can't even remember all this, who signed it, like Hank Thompson and,
Jeez.
all these old legends that, yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's always made sense to me why rodeo guys, especially rough stock guys, leaned more towards rock and roll.
Well, yeah, I mean, just kind of upbeat and
Come on.
don't give a shit kind of attitude. It never hurts if that's what you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I like all kinds of music. So
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Old Charlie Robeson. I played his last show with him.
Charlie, he came by the house. I didn't know him very long, but he stopped by my house, and Lane was down roping, and he was playing. It's back when they used to do the wolf dances and down around in the Metroplex in Fort Worth. They closed down the streets and huge stage. They'd get 20, 30,000 people, and they were big deals. And he was going to play there, and I don't know. We were joking around. I said, I can sing Sunset Boulevard better than you can anyway. So I'm on the side stage, and he said, oh yeah, my cowboy buddy over there said he can sing. He said, yeah, let's just hear it. And so I just went over and sang the whole thing. He said, yeah, why would I can sing as good or better than you. So why would I do? Why wouldn't I? Anyway, so I used to go on stage with him and sing all the time. And we had big time.
Yeah.
He was a one of a kind guy. And I always say, if everybody felt as good about themselves as Charlie felt about himself, it'd be a pretty happy world, because he was convinced that he was not as big as Elvis, but maybe quite bigger.
Oh,
Oh yeah, he
interesting.
no lack of confidence. He was pretty sure he was the shit.
Yeah, confidence is tough. I can't. I have a hard time. It feels like it keeps changing for me. What confidence is?
It's funny with him. With him, he had no lack of it at all. I mean, he was convinced he was.
Great.
Even if he was convinced he was a headliner all day, every day. That's just how he was wired. And, his brother Bruce is just the complete opposite, just quiet as a church mouse. Like, you meet him, and like, that nicest guy you'll ever meet, and you're like, how can these guys be related? Because you wouldn't think they'd come from the same planet.
Yeah, it seems like it's interesting when you're actually doing whatever it is that you need to do, whether it's like riding a bull or roping a steer or getting on stage and like performing or something. It's like once you're actually doing it and you walk up there, You have to have that attitude. I am the best, or I'm the best at what I do, and I'm going to
Yeah.
give my absolute best, and I think I'm great at it. But then the problem is off
The
stage.
problem is if you truly believe your own press, it can be. Yeah, I don't know if that's all that good.
Ah,
Every time I, in my mind, thought that I was this or that, or immediately I'd get my ass slammed, and you get reminded pretty quick that maybe sometimes you're not as good as you think you were.
has that only applied for you with riding, or has that applied like in life too?
Oh, I think it's life. I think you learn more and you get better by getting your ass kicked than by winning. You know, I mean, for me, it took me so long to get to the level that I wanted to be at. It was just such a long period of time. I think I had a little bit more of an appreciation for it than the guys that are naturally talented that just they pick up whatever it is they're doing. There's a lot of guys that have a lot of natural ability.
So you feel like you weren't really that naturally talented, maybe compared to some other people.
No, no, well, I don't think that. I know that. I mean, I started riding when I was 4, and I, you know, came up through junior and high school rodeos, and I loved riding, but I just sucked. I just wasn't very good. Just didn't have a lot of balance. I had plenty of desire and effort, but I just was. If you watch me time and time, you'd think maybe you should try something else. Maybe maybe you're not cut out for this kind of thing, but it's what I really wanted to do, and it took till I was probably from time I stayed on my first calf when I was 4. That he ran straight and didn't do a lot. I don't know that I made the whistle for a long time after that, but once I started, a lot of it I think had to do with when I started breaking race horses and exercising galloping horses. I think I got I got in a little bit better physically, physical shape, but also maybe some balance, and
Oh,
it was just
interesting.
kind of all coming together. I knew what you were supposed to do when you get on, but to me, riding bulls, it's 8 seconds, and it's more of a trained reaction than anything. And the only way you learn how to do it and even get close to mastering it is, by doing it. You know, you can watch all the videos you want. You can go to the gym. You can ride the bucking barrel. You can do all this shit, but the only way you learn how to ride is by riding. And
But you feel like that pretty directly translates to like breaking a colt
I think it translates to life. you know, you're what I'd like most about bull riding is when you're successful and you won, it's your fault. When you suck and you're not successful, it's your fault. It's all 100% on you. It doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter, you know, what color you are, how much money you got, you know, it's you. And
zero
it
excuses. Yeah.
zero. Yeah. Well, I mean, whose fault is it? I mean, it's kind of like they have the team events now. I'm like,
I mean, I guess there's judges.
they're judges, but it's subjective, okay? But bull riding now in this day and age, the bulls are all so good. No matter who you are, what your name is, where you come from, if you make the whistle more than anybody, you're going to win more than anybody. But that's been the case. Charlie Sampson in 1983 was the world champion bull rider, first black world champion from the bad part of LA, and he won it because he simply made the whistle more than anybody else. Whoever rides the most consistently, they win the most, and that's who ends up being being the world champ. I mean, that's not a secret. That's been, again, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. It's a matter of what you can do.
Well, so where'd you start like riding, loping racehorses and?
Well, my dad worked around horse racing, in El Paso, which would be Sunland Park, New Mexico, because they had pari-mutuel wagering in New Mexico and not Texas. So we would live in the winter in El Paso and the summer in Ruidoso. So I was a groom for racehorses from the time I was 8 till I was 14 or 15, and then I started breaking babies and galloping, exercising horses. So when I was in high school, people talk about their high school, their glory days. My high school was being to work every morning at 6 a.m., 7 days a week, and going to work. But in hindsight, that was the best thing for me. I didn't have any time or opportunity to, if you have to get up at 5:30 every day, you don't go hang out all night and be an idiot. So it helped me in a lot of ways.
Well, do you think it might have kicked the can down the road a little bit though?
Well, it's even at one time, because I was so small when I was 16, I was 5'4", $110. I thought I might be a jockey, and I grew up around all that. And the riding race horses, like out of the starting gates with other horses, it has the same adrenaline rush as riding bulls. And the only thing I can ever really compare that type of adrenaline rush is I got to fly an F-16 with the Thunderbirds at Cheyenne, and I actually had the stick on an F-16 for about 15 minutes. And you talk about, wow, cool.
What do you mean
shit.
the stick? I don't even know enough about it.
Well, that's the control on a
really
on F-16.
Oh, so that's like
jet.
the
it's like right here.
Oh, okay.
And you grab it, and then
what do you mean? So you actually got to?
Yeah, no, he put me in a flight pattern, and once you get to altitude, flying an F-16 is easier than driving a car. It's all right here.
Yeah, that's what I've always told everybody.
It's
they just won't believe me.
It's by far and away the coolest thing I've ever done. It was.
You like flew it for a while.
Yeah, got put in a flight pattern, and he said, "Hey, you want to do a loop?" And I'm like, "Yeah." You know what that is? I said, "Yeah, thank you." He said, "Well, just pull back on it." So that's like try to pull back. He said, "No," I said, "Pull back on it." So I pull back, just go upside down, and go. Yeah, do it again. Boom, boom, boom.
No way.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when we first take off, it's in Cheyenne during the rodeo, right after rodeo. Take off right over the arena and go straight up for about probably 5,000 feet, and then he just pulls all the power back, and it just kind of falls out of the sky.
What's that feel like?
It's just an incredible rush. It's indescribable. And so he just kind of falls out of the sky, and then he just kind of rolls it over, and we just take off. And so we're rolling along, and he said, "Here, I'll show you what it can do." So he just tips it up. We're flying that way. And then goes upside down. We're upside down. And he says, "You know why we do this, don't you?" And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Because we fucking can." And he just rolls it back to the other side. So he said, "Now we'll give you a little hint just about what it can really do, how fast it can really go." And he just goes wide open. He said, "Now we're just traveling just a little faster than the speed of sound." And then he starts into all these maneuvers, and you got about probably 3 hour kind of a little mini class about what to expect when once you take off, and explaining how everything works, putting you in a flight suit, and they put you in compression. Your flight suit, has compression pants and whatnot. So once you start pulling G's to try to keep all the blood from running out of your head and losing consciousness. And so you have to learn how to breathe, where you inhale a breath and you exhale only half of what you took in.
Oh, you like did the
And
real
so-
thing. You did the.
And so, yeah, you go, and that's how you breathe. And that's the reason is to keep from passing out, because, once you start getting in some of the maneuvers and whatnot, it's the force just feels like it's just, everything is just pulling you down, and it's just crazy.
Was he walking you through it?
Yeah, well, he told me all this, explained all this on the ground before we ever, took off. And when you first sit down with him and he starts to talk, the pilots, I was actually supposed to fly with it was a female was the pilot that I was supposed to fly with, and she wasn't. She was sick that morning, and so another guy did. But once they start talking, the look in their eye, and once they start speaking, you realize they have a level of intelligence, and just to look in their eye, like, these guys, you can tell right off the bat that this guy, he's the shit of what he does, And, their physical condition is second to none. But once they start explaining what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, how the jet, how it does this, how it does that, how it responds to this and that, and you learn. I mean, if this happens, and we have to eject, this is where you pull this, and it's just, so you're just listening, and then once you get in the air, it's and if you pull, I think it's like 8 or 9 G's and you don't pass out, they give you a pin, like a little pin. So I've got a little pin that I didn't pass out.
Oh, that's a big deal, huh?
Oh yeah, huge deal. Because what happens is, they say, well, yeah, if you pass out, you don't know, you just wake up, like you dozed off or something. But I never did, and so, but I know that right when we were taxiing to take off, my oldest son Lane, was with me, and the PR lady that was there, they were asking the people on the ground, say, hey, will he get sick? And they say, oh yeah, of course he'll get sick. They all get sick. But they tell you, one of the things, it says, hey, just in case you get sick, I'm sure you won't, but sometimes people do. But there's a zipper right here across your right kneecap, and there's a plastic bag in there. So if you get sick, just pull out the bag. Make sure you throw up in the bag, because you've got to, you got oxygen mask, because the crew gets really pissed if you throw up in the mask, and they've got to clean that up. And so when we're taxiing out, they ask them, yeah, is he going to get sick? Oh yeah, of course he will. But they don't tell you that because they don't want you to worry about it.
Yeah.
And I think we flew for about 40 minutes, and I was good. Nothing bothered me at all until we were about to land, and we take the mask off. And as soon as I took the mask off and relaxed, it's like, holy shit, yeah, it's just.
Oh, then
Because just the G force and all that your body endures, it's not used to that. And so I got a little bit sick before I got off, but when we got on the ground, and I climbed off, and when I stepped down, I could just barely stand up. It just takes every ounce of life you have. It's crazy. Like we had to walk probably 50, 100 yards from the jet to the FBO, and I could barely walk. My son nearly had to carry me nearly to there. And when I got inside, I sat down and I threw up for about 20 minutes.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then I had to rent a car because we'd flown into Denver, and I mean, I got in the rent a car, turned it on, turned the AC up as high as I could, and just laid flat on my back, and I didn't move for about probably 3 hours. Just exhausting.
So your body was just good.
Yeah.
And these guys get used to that, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean, like I said, once you see them, you shake their hand. They're as physically fit as anybody you'll ever see.
Gosh dang.
And yeah.
So you're talking about getting on bulls and then flying one of those things is basically are those the two biggest rushes you've ever had?
By far and away. But riding racehorses, like I said, leaving the starting gate, just like would be in a regular race, what they call is working horses with company, it's the same thing. It's got a pretty high level of wow factor. Yeah. And once you do that, it's, you kind of want to do it again. I always say, the first calf I got on when I was 4, I had the same feeling as the last bull I got on when I was 35. It's just a rush of adrenaline, but being able to figure out how to do it is so challenging. Again, I love riding bulls and whatnot when I was no good, but then once I figured out that, hey, maybe I do have a chance to do this, and when I got to where I could ride, then it's really fun because it kept me from getting a real job, and all the things that I've been able to do and places I got to go and people I got to meet. I got to meet President Bush. We had a presidential rodeo at Houston, and got to shake his hand, and he mentioned my name in his speech. We got to see Tuff Hedeman ride a bull. I'm like, the free world.
The president just said
my name. And I was younger then, and I appreciate it a little bit more now. Then I was probably, I don't know, probably 25 or 6. Well, of course, the president knows who I am. I'm a big deal. I never really had that attitude. It's kind of comical.
Just no perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Well, that's an insane thing to.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, you never think you'd ever even, closest you'd see to the president's on TV or in the newspaper. You'd never realize you'd actually shake his hand and he would actually know who you were. So
yeah, that's
kind of pretty exciting, but humbling as well.
I've always thought that that's an interesting statement, though, where it's like humbling.
Well, I mean, this guy's the leader of the free world, and you're,
I know, but wouldn't that be the opposite of humbling?
Do I look like a fucking dictionary?
Well, I've struggled with that before, where it's like, you want to be humble.
I'll let you work on the language and grammar.
Yeah.
We'll cut and go back again. I'll try to correct my dad used to tell me every now and then, we might be fucking hillbillies, but we don't have to prove it.
Yeah, there you go.
It's one thing for everybody to think you're this or that. It's another thing for you to open your mouth
and prove
confirm
it. And confirm it. Dude, being in the moment, like when you're talking about standing there and you got the president talking about your name, people will they'll always say, you got to be in the moment. You really got to appreciate this moment right here. But sometimes, appreciating it in the moment, it's almost impossible sometimes. Because what if, so for instance, whatever, you got a big moment, you got the big spotlight, you're going for it, and people say you got to appreciate this moment, you got to be in the moment. But that in ways can psych you out if you if you try to appreciate the moment too much rather than just responding to the moment. Does that mean you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I would really appreciate the moment when it's over and I won.
Okay, so yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
well, it's easy to get ahead of yourself, and no matter what it is or what you're doing, you know, everybody's wired different. Everybody kind of approaches things different, and for me, um, I guess the moment for me was whenever I succeeded. You know, because anything less than that meant that I sucked.
So would you ever try to take time to like look back on things and like really appreciate them?
Well, I appreciated the fact that this is what I get to do. You know, that's, but I knew in order for me to do that, you have to show up every day and be be ready to go every day. You know, I think if I would have been an artist or maybe a big league, you know, I've known a lot of MLB guys. They don't have to do shit except show up, and I don't even think they even put their own socks on. You know, everybody does everything for them.
I don't.
Is a
That's why I
cow
got Skeeter right there.
as a cowboy and bull rider in my era, you know, I had to be a travel agent. Had to be, you had to do a lot of things to get from, I'm in Fort Worth today. I'm in Redding, California tomorrow. I'm in Calgary the next day. And the only way I got from point A to point B was me. Again, I had to schedule, and I always traveled with good guys. The one thing I always did, especially early in my career, is I always had good guys to travel with. They kind of had the same idea, same goals. We wanted to ride bulls. We wanted to kick ass. We wanted to win. We didn't let anything, interfere with that. And everywhere you go, just like you as a musician, every time you play a show, it's a party. And so it's easy to, okay, you're done, you go party. Well, I wasn't ever opposed to going out and having a beer or two or three or whatever, but more than likely at 5 or 6 a.m. I was up and on an airplane and driving occasionally. I flew a lot more than I drove, just because, my rule of thumb, I would go wherever the most money was. And so long as you won, you could fly. I never was big on driving anyway, but there, you have to do a lot of things. You don't have a tour manager. You don't have, when you walk on stage, your guitar's tuned, your sound, whatever. As a bull rider or a cowboy, in my era and generation, was you had to do all of that. You didn't have anybody babysitting you, so you had to have the discipline to. Yeah, well, you might want to stay and have a couple more beers and hang out with some buds or do this, that, and the other. But bottom line was, you had to be somewhere tomorrow.
Or at least if you did, you were going to be the one that paid the consequences.
Yeah, yeah.
So you owned it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been guys that, could have went a lot higher and further than they did, that just either didn't have the desire or the discipline to, stay focused to get to where they had to be.
So when you're saying that you don't feel like you were maybe the most naturally gifted or talented guy, what does it come down to then at that level? Because everybody's so good.
It comes down to just in simple cowboy terms, whoever tries the hardest, whoever, I would rather anything happen to me than get bucked off. and it would just, you know, I rodeoed with the guys I always rodeoed with, guys like Lane Frost, Jim Sharp, Clint Bronger. I know Jim Sharp was a better bull rider than I was. He was probably the best guy I've ever seen. Naturally, he was a naturally talented guy, but he could ride bulls that nobody could ride. I mean, when Jim Sharp came along, nobody had ever ridden 10 bulls in a row at the National Finals Rodeo. And over a period of 3 years, Jim Sharp rode 23 in a row. So that's always that's
Yeah, if you have a question.
my fact of why I believe, why that he was the best guy. And I'm saying the best guy, when everybody was at their best. He won 2 world championships, because I just don't believe winning world championships and winning all day, every day was as important to him as it was for me. I was consumed with that. I wanted, I didn't get tired of traveling. I didn't get tired of riding. It just never got old to me. Even, I rode professionally until I was 35. I rode professionally for 15 years. Very few people are able to sustain a career that long, because it's such a physical, such a dangerous sport that, a lot of times, you get beat down mentally or physically, or a combination of both. And, one day you wake up and you say, I either don't want to do it anymore, or I can't do it anymore.
Then what do you think? There was there stuff that you focused on mentally, or things that you did?
For me, it was just getting on and riding.
You just truly loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was
there was a guy named Jerome Robinson. He was I think he made the national finals probably 10 or 12 times. Never was a world champion, but he approached rodeo, riding. And even after he retired from riding, became a rodeo, an event producer. He was everything he did was very methodical, and he approached everything kind of from a business standpoint. And he was kind of I knew him. I knew who he was growing up, and then I got to know him, got to be friends with him. And when we started the PBR, he was the guy that I got to, produce our events, because he'd been he'd been retired. But he gave me one of the best compliments I think that I've ever got from anybody. He said, "You're the best I've ever seen at being in the moment." He said, "Because it doesn't matter if you're about to get on your bull, you're about to nod, you're all in. If you're at a radio station doing an interview or a television interview, you're in that. You're in the moment. You're not somewhere else. If you're at the bar, you're in that. You're in the. He said, but when it comes down to, because even whenever I'd rode, after I'd rode professionally for 10 years, not that smart, but I knew that I wasn't going to ride bulls forever. And, that's when we started, we started doing, a lot of standalone bull riding events were kind of popping up here and there. And that's when we started we came up with the PBR and whatnot. So I started producing events while I was still riding. I started producing events. My first one was in 1993. And then, I rode another 5 years after that. But being able to, ride and make sure that the announcer's on cue, doing a lot of, because the more success you have, the more distractions you have, if you win this or you win that, you get opportunities to go do things, to meet different people, to get introduced to different, just lots and lots of different things. But and a lot of times that can distract you from your real job, which is making the whistle and winning. And I was pretty good at, whenever it came time for me to ride, I could, more times than not, would show up. And I think that's hard for, I think it's hard for a lot of people, because again, when you first start out, nobody knows who you are, nobody gives a shit who you are, and that's fine. But again, once you win, there are just more opportunities and more things to do, both good and bad.
More opinions about you.
More of everything. And that's, yeah, the funny thing about it is that I've always been a realist, and so I take most of it. I'm pretty objective and honest with myself, and what I'm good at, what I'm not. But, at the end of the day, when you're competing, you got to be all in. Nothing else can matter.
So that type of focus, though, didn't you have, how many siblings did you have?
I was the youngest of 7.
Oh shit, I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. So there was a lot going on.
Well, yeah. It was. There's a lot of pluses and minuses to being the youngest. You don't ever get anything new. You don't have any baby pictures. But the positive is, you don't have a curfew. You don't, because your parents, and I had the coolest mom and dad in the world, but they were very blue collar, just good, hardworking people. But they were very objective, and said, you can have whatever you want. Get off your ass and go get it. My dad worked 7 days a week, and we never took vacations. We never had new cars. Every car that we got that was new, it was new to us, but it was probably 10 years old. But he was just a hardworking, resourceful guy, but one of the coolest guys I've ever met. And so, like I said, I was youngest of 7, and I was such a mama's boy that I didn't want to leave my mom to go to kindergarten. So I didn't go to kindergarten. I just went with my mom to work. I'm like, that's a shit you get away with when, like, if it's your firstborn, it's kindergarten. Well, you're going to kindergarten because we're going to make you a human. We're going to make you this, that, the other.
You also made a living out of holding on. So,
and parents realize after a few kids that you're not going to make your kids this or that. They're individuals, and they're going to be, you try to encourage them and keep them between the lines, because at some point in time, they're going to do what the hell they want to do anyway. You just got to hopefully, show them that it's better to be good than bad. I mean, you can, and at some point in time, everybody makes a choice. You're going to be worth a shit or you're not. And you know what that is. And that's different for different people, but either you're going to be a decent person or you're going to be a hoodlum that ends up in the penitentiary.
So was there any defining moment where you had to ask yourself, am I going to be worth a shit or not?
No, I was always a good kid, and because my older brother was a knucklehead. My older brother didn't listen to much of anything that he was told. He was a good dude, but he just did whatever the hell he wanted. And like, my dad would whip him, and I'm like, I just looked at him and said, "Hey, if you act like that, you're gonna get your ass whipped." So, growing up, I usually had a job and made good grades in school, and I didn't get in much trouble. I was a really good kid, and then I went to college and I discovered beer and females, and probably wasn't that good for a while.
Yeah.
But when I went to college on a rodeo scholarship, and was most of my brothers and sisters didn't go to college, but I went. But
Did you go to Sul Ross?
I went to Sul Ross. I was the poorest college student in America, I guarantee you, because you get down there, everybody's got their vehicle, truck, whatever they got for graduation. My dad said, "I guess you can take that old car over there." It was a 1960 Buick. This is in 1981, so it's like 20 years old and about a mile long.
God, that thing was that thing was a tank.
Yes, and so that's what I took to school. But first of the month they get their allowance. Their parents take them down there, move them in. My mom and dad say, "Good luck," which that's how we're just raised. We didn't need them. They didn't. You're good. You know what to do. But I used to tell my older boys, I'd say, I don't want you to ever have to really experience. Every now and then, you be with your buddies, they go eat, and you wouldn't eat because you didn't have any money, and say, "No, I'm not hungry. I didn't eat." And you're like, "Fuck, I wish I had." Grab a handful of fries on your way out. I mean, I wasn't starving to death by any means, but I'd go day work. The good thing about being at Sul Ross, there are ranches all around there, so I'd go day work on ranches and survive and go to the college rodeos and win enough to pay my fees and a little rent here and there. But it's whenever you have to perform to have enough money to leave town. Yeah, that's
So like you didn't even know you were training your mind.
Yeah, that's pressure. Whenever you have to, the first thing you do when you get to the college rodeo or any rodeo is that you go up and you pay your entry fees, whatever it costs to enter. Well, most of the college rodeos, when I first went to college, I didn't have enough money to pay all my entry fees because I entered the bronc riding, the bull riding, the team roping, and the steer wrestling. And so I kind of had to befriend the lady that ran the secretary, that she would let me pay my entry fees after the rodeos, meaning I had to win to pay to pay. And she would go like that, because she knew, I didn't. And so every time, with the exception of one time, I won enough to pay my fees. I had to borrow, like, I think 150 from a buddy of mine named Lane Foltine in Lubbock, Texas, one time.
You remember the one time?
Yeah, that was the only time that I didn't win enough to at least pay my fees. So, but that's you have no option other than to work harder and get better. When we go out and get on practice bulls, I'd get on 3, 4, 5, 6, and the guys that could ride pretty good usually wouldn't get on but 1 or 2 sometimes, or any, because they rode good. And everybody would always ask me, "Well, why do you get on so many?" I said, "Because I'm not that good, and I want to get better." The only way I was going to get better was getting on. That's the only way for me. That's the only way I could figure it out. Again, I could tell you exactly what you need to do to ride this particular bull. But can you do that? When I open the gate, can you process all the things I told you what you need to do? Not that hard to do this, and this. You'll be good. Being able to, just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you can do anything. The only way is to, Tiger Woods, I'm pretty sure, learned how to hit golf balls by hitting golf balls. Mm-hmm. All day, every day.
Would you spend time visualizing though?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's all I thought about. That's all I thought about was riding nonstop. I mean, I did pretty well in school, but I'd be when I was in school, I most of the time in school I was riding bulls in my mind. I was making the whistle.
Yeah. Well, Sol Ross is the perfect place to do that.
Yeah, and it was the first 2 years I was down there. We won the national championship. That was in the early '80s, and they hadn't done that since like the early '60s. So there are always good guys around, and it's always funner to be around guys that kind of have similar ideas or goals, and
No question.
it's
Yeah.
it's just funner, and it kind of makes you it's motivating. You don't want to be the only guy in your group that sucks. Whenever there's like me and Jim and Lane and Clint Bronger, we'd be traveling. We kind of had a rule that if you got bucked off 3 in a row, that you couldn't hang out with us. You just gonna have to go travel by yourself, because we couldn't be hanging around guys like you. So I mean, there was always it was just, again, you knew that they were going to be badasses. You knew that Jim Sharp, Lane Frost, something wrong. They could ride them all day long, every day. You didn't want to be the guy. Well, those guys are really good, but that one, he sucks. You didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah. So you feel like Jim Sharp was just? Do you feel like he had who do you feel like had the most natural talent?
I think probably Jim did. Yeah. I think if Jim, he was so good. I think if he, I don't know. That's just me guessing. I think if it was as important to Jim as it was to me, that he would have won 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because he rode so good. He rode just with ridiculous ease. He never got hurt.
Could you define when you say rode so good?
We just
What are
did
some
everything.
things that come to your mind?
I mean, he did everything pretty much fundamentally correct. He did it. When you watch him, it just looks effortless, and he'll get on. And back to what you said. It's judges that score. But it's an opinion. A judge is an opinion. A good judge agrees with you. A bad judge disagrees with you. That's But most of the judges, they have a similar opinion on what's good and what's not. The thing about Jim, he rode, he made it look like it was nothing. And so a lot of times, Lane or he might ride the same bull and be 2-3 points higher, because he just makes it look easy. He makes it look like the bull's not doing as much.
Wow. Yeah.
But he, like I said, he won a couple world titles, and the one thing I do say about, you're always hearing about going to the gym and working out, and I'm like, it's 8 seconds. How good a shape do you really have to be in? You're not going to get. You can look at a guy and see if he's in decent shape, good shape. But the thing about riding bulls, it's not about strength at all. It's more about reaction and being flexible than it is being strong. And so Jim, after he'd won the world couple times, and he started going to the gym a lot more and working out and getting big muscles and stronger. But what it did is he got stiffer. He wasn't as flexible, and he wasn't near the bull rider he was, in 90, 95, 96. Again, when you get older, your your skills diminish or whatever, father time, whatever you want to call it. But uh, for him, he just got so strong, so bulky. He didn't move the same way, and he went from being probably the best ever to being just a good bull rider, but not the best you've ever seen.
Yeah, sure.
But
And so,
there's not very many people that are able to sustain getting on day in and day out all day, every day, because it's a lot.
is there anybody you know of that rode at your level for as long as you did? Who else?
Oh, there were a lot of guys that, there wasn't that many guys that rode the same time I did that, I rode, I took off 1 year in 94. I had neck surgery and at the end of 93, and didn't ride at all in 94. Wasn't sure if I'd ever ride again. And then I came back and rode 95, 96, 97. And I landed on my neck in the spring of 98 at Odessa at a PBR event. I blew another disc out, and I'd already had neck surgery, and Dr. Freeman said if you have the same injury, I'll level up, that I would be Christopher Reeves or dead. So that was the last time I rode. But that was spring of 98. I was in the lead in both the PBR and the PRCA at that time. I could still ride, but it was a lot harder. It was just more of a struggle to ride ones that 5 years before that I would have rode easily. But
Did the physical struggle start to impact you mentally, though? Did it become more of a mental struggle?
no, it just became more of an annoyance to me.
Yeah.
Is it you feel like you're, I always felt like I put out the effort, but there was a period of time when the effort, I knew I was putting out the effort, but it was easier. Just become more of a struggle. Just harder to ride one that 5 years previously you had rode with not just wouldn't have been that hard.
I know
So you kind of feel it, and so I knew that I knew that there's never a good time to quit. To me, everybody wants their John Elway win the Super Bowl and retire, but
gosh,
if I just won the Super Bowl,
would you
that
really?
that means I could win another one.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, I
dude.
would never.
Yeah.
I would never have the ability to do that.
No question.
For me, it happened perfectly for me. I just knew that I knew I was done.
Yeah.
And again, he said, "Yeah, one more of these. You're Christopher Reeves. Sucking on a straw to turn your chair, or you're dead." And he said, "I know how much you love your boys." And from that day on, that was fine. I was done. And people always ask, do you miss it? And I don't miss it at all. It was another time. It was, I did it as long as I could, as good as I could, and that's enough for me. There were, I'm sure, better guys, but I ended up with 4 world championships. I got bucked off to win a couple more, but back in those days, it became a one bull made major world champion or not. So, I could have won more. I could have won less. All I know for me, I won as much as I could.
Yeah, you won exactly as much as you were supposed to.
And like I said, I can look back. If I'd have done this, I was never big looking back. What if? Whenever I blew the biggest lead, the first time I thought I should have won the world, I just choked. And that I learned more from that than any time I ever won. So, like I said,
What was the
getting your ass kicked occasionally is a good thing. You don't really, more times than not in life, you don't learn anything until it affects you. People can tell you this, and this, and you say, yeah. And then it happens to you and you say, got it. Got it. That was, yeah.
so why do you
There's no substitute for experience.
yeah. What makes you feel like it was a situation where you choked?
Well, I went into the national finals the first year they were in Las Vegas, and I had a $10,000 lead. This is in '85, that was a huge lead.
Yeah.
And I rode the first 5. I got on 5 in a row. And if it had been over that day, I'd have won the world. Even back in, I'd have won the world by $40,000 probably. If it had been over, but over the next 5 rounds, I only rode 2 out of 5, and got bucked off. I mean, an incredibly bad to ride one wasn't the one to have, but one I probably more times than not I would have rode him, but I didn't, and it just happened to be the one that cost me the world championship. I'd led all year long. I'd been in the lead for 11 months, but what that taught me is, you get to thinking ahead of yourself, and you think you got this. You don't get shit until you do it.
So you feel like you were starting to tell yourself that story?
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd already had it won. Yeah. I was guilty of probably reading a little bit of my own press. Yeah, shit, I am pretty good. Yeah. I went out and proved I wasn't that good at all. But I learned more from it made me better from that day forward.
So the next time, do you remember a next time that you started having that feeling again? Kind of buying your own press?
Well, every time I was aware of it. It happened to me at probably one of the most critical times. So it was always there. I knew it was there.
Well, and okay, so the next time
I knew I always had to show up. I mean,
yeah. So you just would block it out after that. You were like, no, screw that.
It was done. You just know.
Yeah.
You just know what you have to go and do. And you prepare for that, and once you figure out how to do it, you just go do it. But again, there's no, there's never a time where you get to, well, I finally made it, and you get to, I made it, and now you can kind of relax a little bit. You make it until tomorrow.
I know every successful person I ever talk to.
Tomorrow is when,
yeah. It don't matter what you do. Everybody just talks about like loving the process.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just, for me, just getting to do what I got to do. I got to ride bulls for a living.
Hell yeah.
The absolute coolest thing. And I never wanted my kids to do it. And, if you really love somebody and you really care about somebody, you don't want them to ride bulls. I mean, why would you? I mean, I would ask this question. I've had people ask me, well, why don't, your sons ride? And I'm like, I guess because they don't want to. I said, I didn't encourage it, but I didn't discourage it. If that's what they would have wanted to do, I would have helped them. If you want to do it, nobody can keep you from doing it. If you don't want to do it, there's nothing can make you do it. But my question to somebody who asked me why, I'm like, well, how many people have died where you work doing the job that you do while you're at work? Yeah. Well, for me, it's at least 4. 4 guys who were friends of mine. One of my best friends that die 20 feet in front of you. Not hurt, 6 feet under, dead. No mas. So if you really give a shit about somebody, yeah. but if one of my sons, if that's what they chose, I would help them. And for me, it was the coolest thing ever. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I always laugh at, I always say I was the youngest of 7. I'm like, my parents had to have the logic or mentality like, well, if we lose him, shit, we still got 6 more. That would have to be, because I mean, the shit that we did when we were kids, like the bulls, just the things that we did. I'm like, it's just a different, it's a different
Just
world.
insane, yeah.
It's a different world. I mean, for me, like I said, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. But there's not very many people who actually, who feel that way. I mean, like my 10-year-old, he's the kindest little human I've ever met. And he thinks he wants to be a bull rider, and I'm like, well, you don't like it when you get hurt. You don't like it when you bleed. You're going to bleed and get hurt. So he gets on one, he gets on the calf, and he hits and knocks air out of him. Oh, it just hurts when I breathe. I'm like, that's bull riding. I said, I'm afraid you're gonna be like a lot of guys that I see every now and then, or I've seen over the years. You're gonna like everything about bull riding, except bull riding. you like everything around it. You like all the, you like hanging out with the guys, hanging out with the hot girls.
Yeah, you like the attention. You
like everything except. I've always said bull riding is a great idea till it's your turn. And you think, what the hell was that? Really me? Is it really? No.
So you just didn't get that same sensation team roping or riding broncs or anything?
I love to ride broncs.
Yeah.
And I rode broncs pretty good. I feel my permit riding broncs. I'm about half pigeon-toed. I never could turn my toes out very good.
Oh, okay.
And so I couldn't beat the good guys. I was a good, I could have been, I won good at the circuit rodeos. I won the college finals one time, but I just wasn't good enough. But also it wasn't right. It wasn't as important. I always wanted to ride. Bull riding was always.
So there was
what I
like a
wanted to
danger,
do.
fear, adrenaline factor to it, big time.
Yeah, riding broncs is like, there's nothing to be afraid. I mean, nothing.
I do love it though; it's beautiful.
Nothing like I love riding broncs, and it was fun. It's fun, and not that there aren't some injuries here and there, but the difference between bull riding and bronc riding is really not a comparison.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I was trying to insinuate.
No, but the learning curve riding broncs, you get beat up riding broncs. Once you figure it out, it's kind of, I got this, and it's fun, easy. It's probably the least stressful event there is in certainly in the rough stock events, and probably in the rest of them too, It's fun. It's a fun, cool event, but you just don't see the injuries. The things that can happen in bull riding. And even I produce events all. That's what I've been doing since the early nights. Every night you see at least 2, 3, 4 guys that are 6 inches away from dying.
Mm-hmm.
You see it. You see a foot. You see a hoof go graze right by their ear, or graze right by their, by their chest. And the vest is done. It saved a lot of guys from very serious injuries and even dying. But the vest isn't a hell of a lot. The vest does nothing if a bull's foot steps right on your throat, which can and has and will happen. Like I said, after you see a handful of your buddies or guys just perish right in front of you, you see it a little differently, but it doesn't keep doesn't keep you from doing it.
Does it make you more fearful?
It can, but you can't really, again, everybody's wired differently. You know, for me, it was like the only way I could sell it to myself or justify it is that, you know, hey, all you gotta do is make a good ride. If you make a good ride and get off under your own power, you're good. And beyond that, I'm going to die one of these days. And if it's today, shit happens.
I know. I'm always so
Shit
envious.
happens. And so you just have to tell yourself it's not that big a deal. You just kind of have to downplay it. You know, like I said, I know everybody's different in the way they approach and they see it and feel it or whatever. But for me, it was like, it's worth the risk, you know, because again, you're pretty much cheating death every time you do it.
Yeah.
And it's not that you have a death wish, but again, I'm a realist. Ain't none of us getting out of here alive. If this what happens to me, hope not, but
Well, you made it out of that one.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I can show you, I've got pictures we got a picture we rode at the Calgary Olympics in '88. I've got a picture of a bull that he has his horn and it looks like it's about to just go right in my temple. It looks like it's just about to just spear me there. And, you know, I can show you videos where I hit the ground, you know, a foot comes right here or right here or right here. And, you know, I've had some close calls and glancing blows and, you know, I had, whenever I got hit in the face and had crushed everything from here down, 13 and a half hours of reconstructive surgery. But shit happens.
It maybe could have been worse.
I could have been.
I mean, that's a crazy thing.
I could have
for me
been
to say,
carved out
but-
in a pine box, you know. And even like everybody thinks that the face, you know, getting my face busted was the worst thing ever. And it was like, it wasn't that big of a deal to me because it crushed every bone from here down, but you know, I wasn't even knocked unconscious. I mean, I remember every bit of the bodacious ride like it was yesterday. I remember walking out and, you know, I mean, it was I know I got hit pretty hard. I'm like, shit, you know, and kind of hesitated to get it, but I got up as I was walking out. I was telling the guy next to me, I said, I think I must have broke my jaw because when I bite down, my teeth don't touch together. And there's just blood just going everywhere. And I'm walking down this little narrow alley between where the bullpens are and the seats and the MGM are. And I'm noticing the reaction of these people's faces, and they're looking at me like, oh my God. Oh. And I'm like, I tell my buddy, I said, you know, I must not look very good because I'm getting everybody's covering their eyes and whatnot. And so I started to walk up into the training, you know, training room where Dr. Freeman and all the Justin Sports Medicine guys were. And he said, go get in the ambulance and go to the hospital. So I go down in the Grand Garden Arena. They have like curtains, whatever. So back there where the ambulance is, well, the ambulance was there, but the drivers had went back up to cover the bull ride because they thought I went to the sports medicine room. So I just sit down there, and I remember I watch Troy Dunn ride, and as I'm sitting there, I'm talking to my buddy. His name's Bill. I said, yeah. I said, hey, help me dig my contacts out of my eyes because I wore contacts. I said, because my eyes are swelling shut. I could just feel my face just expanding. So I dig my contacts out. And they come, they put me on a stretcher, and I never really felt. I mean, it really wasn't just it wasn't a real throbbing pain or anything until they put me on a stretcher and I laid back. And as soon as I laid back, felt like somebody started hitting me in the head with a sledgehammer. And then they gave me something. I woke up 2 days later, and they'd done all kinds of reconstructive surgery. I mean, I didn't have a nose. They had to construct. And they'd like put in like 5 titanium plates and all kinds of. Anyway, and that was the middle of October, and then the national finals was 6 weeks later. And then I came to the national finals. I lost like 26 pounds, and I wasn't sure if I was going to ride or not. And then I asked Dr. Freeman if what he thought. He said, "It's up to you." He said, "All this is all wired in, screwed in. If you get hit,
If you get it again,
it would be no different than if you got hit, without that. Yeah, it's going to mess stuff up, but you feel like you're strong enough to, it's your decision." So I got on, and in hindsight, I maybe shouldn't have, but I still rode, and that was I drew Bodacious, later that week, and I didn't get on him because whenever he hit me, I thought I was in good position right in the middle of him, and I didn't think I could ride him if I tried to lean back and get away from that. I thought he'd either hit me coming up or going down, and so I didn't get on him, but I got on 9. I rode 5 out of 9, and wasn't the best NFR, but I still won a little bit.
Yeah, and especially losing almost 30 pounds.
Yeah.
I see. That's where I'm just always fascinated about you guys.
But it was the
mental part of it. And you guys make things so simple. Like all my rodeo buddies, and you're obviously a legend, so you're in a different category in and of yourself. But I don't know. I'm a thinker, obviously, with songwriting and the artsy fartsy thing. So it's like my biggest struggle is just getting out of my own head. And I'm always because y'all just make things sound so simple. Even though it's the pinnacle of risk and stress.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but maybe it is so black and white. That's what simplifies it to a certain degree. Just get on or don't. But
yeah, it's nobody gives a shit about the details. Just you either do it or you don't.
I need to hear more of that.
At the end of the day, as long as you know, at the end of the day, I hated to get bucked off and I hated to lose. And at the end of the day, as long as I knew that I tried as hard as I could, I was okay with that. I could always live with that. I can't live with knowing I didn't put out the effort. So that was the most important thing to me all day, every day. It's okay. It's okay to not win. It's okay to get bucked off. It's okay to suck. You didn't get it done. Okay. It's not okay not to give every ounce of energy you have. It's not okay to not try your hardest.
Have you noticed culturally, within maybe rodeo, have you noticed that there is a little less try, or do you feel like
I don't see that.
Okay. That's good.
I think a lot of guys my age are still mad because they're not riding, or maybe they didn't get to where they wanted to or should have or whatever. There were guys back in the day that didn't try that hard either. Sometimes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good guys, and I'm,
I think I've sat next to a lot of them at the bar.
It's
Man, I used to.
I try not to be I try not to be that guy, but I'm a spade's a spade,
Yeah.
If you tried hard, and you didn't make it, that's okay. But if you didn't try, if you didn't give it every ounce of energy you had, that's not okay.
I totally agree.
That's never okay. But you look at guys that are out there now. You've got some young guys coming up. Bull riding's a young sport, and you know, I don't think you're not going to see guys that probably ride as many years at the highest level as I did. You know, you will a handful, but you know, they get on the bulls are consistently better every day than they were whenever I was riding. Um, you know, the bull that bucked the hardest, you know, in 1985 or 95, bucked as hard as, you know, the bulls that buck hard today. But now,
Just on
every
average,
day,
yeah.
they're all good now.
Yeah.
You know, you don't show up. You know, used to a lot of times when you weren't winning, it was like, well, you know, I drew a bull that was no good. You know, it's like putting a great jockey on a slow horse at the Kentucky Derby. He's going to lose. You know, bull riding half of the sport, half of the score is a bull, and the bulls are so good now. So now you don't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, I just drew that."
Yeah.
No, if you don't win now, it's because you didn't ride good enough. You might not have the bull that you would like. You know, there's always one that might favor this person's style or that person, and that's what makes the difference of a guy like, you know, of Sage Kimsey or a guy like, you know, Stetson Wright. You know, they don't have to have a bull that turns back into their hand or away from, you know, whatever fits their style. The good guys, they can ride them all, whether they go left, right, or straight. And you know, there's a kid that, you know, his dad was from Brazil. His name's John Crimber. You know, I think he's 19 now, maybe. I mean, he's a kid that, you know, he's a once in a generation kind of guy. If he can stay healthy and he can stay motivated, you know, there's a kid named Noah Lee, Mike Lee, who his dad was a world champion. He just turned 18 this year. Incredibly talented guys. There's always good guys coming up, but I don't buy into these guys aren't as tough as we were. There's some are and some aren't, but there were some were and some weren't back in the day.
Yeah, man.
A lot of people don't have very good memories, I guess.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, this is great, man. I mean, we've obviously hung out a little bit, but
Yeah.
never
No,
got
it's
to
good to
really
see ya.
sit down and chat.
Yeah, I keep up with you, and I'm glad
thanks.
you're doing well.
Yeah, it's always
I'm a fan of anybody that's successful. I don't give a shit what it is, because it's hard to be successful at anything.
at anything.
At anything, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be this or that. They're just not everybody wants to do what it takes to be this or that.
And that's why you can get people from all sorts of different industries, walks of life. And if they have some modicum of success at whatever that they do, you can get them all in the same room, and there's going to be that understanding. Like, you've done some shit that nobody knows about when nobody was around. Like, and you worked at some things that you never got credit for to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's like an unspoken thing with just successful people.
Yeah, well,
I'm not saying
successful.
I'm
I mean,
that
for
person,
successful people, you know, they're just they just won't take no for an answer. You know, they just, and it's different for everybody. You got to fit, you know, what works for one guy doesn't work for another. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you've been around. It's kind of like breaking horses. Okay, kids are the same way. You know, you might be able to scold one or slap them on the butt, and that works fine for this one. You do that to the other one, might have the opposite effect. So you just never know. Everybody's different, and once you know, they're just not a one size fits all.
Well, I always appreciate you remembering me. You had came to my first album release party.
Yeah.
And Larry Joe put it together. And he had texted me and he was like, "Hey man, Tuff Hedeman's gonna come." And I was like,
You have got to be kidding me.
He's coming out here. I'm like,
What
why?
are you
Why
doing
would
with that loser?
Yeah, I'm like, why would he come to this? So, anyways, we came. I
Yeah.
still have that picture that we took at that deal.
Yeah.
And then I'd seen you a handful of times after that, just
Yeah.
through the years,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, if somebody doesn't remember me, I'm not. It's no sweat. Like I get it. And every single time, I'd always go up to you and be like, "Hey, man, I'm Jarrod," and you'd be like, "I know who you are."
I
you
always
freak."
know who you are.
I know.
And I'm, you know what? And I'm guilty of not remembering people's names and shit sometimes, but
Well, I don't think you probably.
you remember a gazillion. You meet a gazillion people, and unfortunately, some people can remember a gazillion people, but I can't sometimes, and I feel like shit if I don't. But once you meet so many people, yeah,
No, it gets tough.
yeah.
Yeah, but I always appreciated that. And the last time I saw you in Vegas, just this past year, you probably don't remember this part, but I came up to you and I did it again, and I was like, "Hey," because I saw you across the casino, and I go, "Hey, man, I'm Jarrod." I re-explained myself, and you go, "I know, motherfucker." You're like, "Quit doing that."
No,
I know who
because
you are.
Yeah,
I know who you are.
I've never not looked at you like, I wonder who the fuck that is. No, I know who you are. Yeah,
You go, "Quit! Don't do that again." I go, "Okay, I won't do
yeah.
it again. That's the last time."
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you how
Absolutely.
you've always treated me, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Whip away. Sing the sweet melody.